Hi guys, and welcome to this new InstaMAT tutorial. In this one we are going to cover the element graph. This is the project type where you can create procedural materials and meshes and so on. And as there's a lot to cover here with a lot of possibilities, I'm going to split this introduction into multiple parts. So we will have an overview where you will learn how to set up a project, learn the UI, and I also show you some nodes that are very useful, like the different flat fill nodes, the warp nodes, and so on. And then we'll make a second or maybe even a third part where we are going to create a material where I'll also show you some advanced workflows and how to set it up correctly and how to get your material into your user library. So let's just begin by clicking on this plus. You get to this menu here. Then you can select the element graph and we will create a project without a template. There are some built-in templates like this default one and a PBR material template where you already have some nodes and outputs set up, but as we are going to start from scratch, let's just create a project without a template. So after creating the project, the canvas will spawn. This is where we can spawn and place nodes, etc. So this is our main working area. We also have this package management here where you can see your package and you can create subgraphs, which will be also shown here. We have this graph library. This is all the built-in assets and materials, nodes and so on. We have some settings like viewport settings. We have our viewport here, and at the bottom we have our image viewer. We can switch those views so that the viewport is at the bottom and the image viewer at the top. We can also move this to the right. So you have your image viewer here and your viewport here. But let's switch it to the left again. Then yeah, like mentioned, this is our canvas. At the top we have different settings, like for example the execution resolution, which we can set from 64 by 64 to 4K, and when we go to edit and to preferences, we can also adjust the maximum graph execution size up to 16K, but this is really meant for really powerful systems. So as a working resolution, this is really unnecessary. 4K is nice, but even this can be too heavy when you have many nodes spawned, so we stay at 2K. You can adjust the bit depth, the preview quality. So those settings are quite nice when you don't have a powerful machine. You can set the preview quality to low, for example, so the preview in the nodes won't be as high quality, but the render time will increase. You have an overview over your video memory, then the used video memory, and you can even set a memory budget. We have our seeds. So when we change this, the whole graph will re-render with different seeds. I'll show this later when we have something set up. Those are the buttons for which view you want to have as the main view. For example, our 3D viewport is now at the left. When we click this, it's in the middle. And same for the image viewer. You can also toggle this with the shortcut Alt and C. So when we press Alt and C, we can just rotate. So the other buttons are, for example, here where you can set up a new project, you can save your project, you can export your image and data outputs. This one is for baking, this one is a ray tracer. This is an output log where you can see what's going on if you have any errors or so, but we will turn that off for now. Here's our dope sheet where you can make animations and keyframes, etc. I'll show this later as well. So those are also quite nice for performance here, but I won't go in too deep into this. maybe when we are working with a setup project and it's worth to show this. For example, this is the link category mode where you can, for example, when you have a material that has base color, roughness, metalness, AO, normal, and height, you can just click this and then connect this node to another node with the same inputs. I'll show that later as well. And this is a toggle for a minimap, for example, which you can see here. It's on off. This locks the comments, and this one is for canvas previews. This one is also quite nice for the canvas only renders the connected nodes and the unconnected nodes are not rendered. I'll show this later as well. Then we have this one here, which will show the performance of the whole graph and nodes, etc., like how many VRAM is used. Let's go back into the canvas's main. So you have this info here where you see the memory, for example, and you can turn it off and on. And this one is for canvas update time. And yeah, like mentioned, go deeper into this when we have something set up. So at the right, we have our graph object editor, where you can find all the settings for your nodes, for example. And we also have the graph variable editor. This is for, yeah, like it says, for the variables. And yeah, I'll show this more when we have something set up. So let's just set up a small project and create our first material. So to do this, we first need some nodes on the canvas. So by pressing the space button, we are invoking quick search and we can search for nodes like, for example, a Berlin noise. And what I always like to do when starting a new material, I like to use an auto levels as the last output. So when we drag a connection from the Berlin noise output and let go, quick search is invoked again. And we can type in auto levels. So the auto levels is a node that will normalize your height map. So the grayscale values are going from full black to full white, and we are always using the full range. Likely when the material is finished, I change it to a simple levels node, which is normalized, but for working, I always like to use this, as no matter what we do here, our height map will always be normalized. So to create some outputs and visualize what we are doing in the canvas so that we have something going on in this 3D viewport on the cube here, we need some outputs first, and we have different possibilities to do this. What I like to do is to make all of the outputs manually, so by dragging a connection from the auto levels output pin and letting it go, you can see we have at the top under action a command that is expose output as graph output. But we want to have this as height map, so we type in height, and as you can see, this changes to expose height as graph output. And when we now hit enter, our height output is created, and as you can see, there's something happening here in this 3D viewport. We are actually getting some displacement. But for a full PBR material, we need base color, roughness, metalness, normal map, ambient occlusion, and height. So let's start by creating a solid color node, set it to a gray value, then drag a connection and type in base color and hit enter as well. So as you can see, we created the base color, and when we now change the color in the solid color node, this changes in the 3D viewport as well. Same for the height. When we go to the Berlin noise and adjust the scale, for example, the scale changes in the material as well. However, what we now need is a height to normal node. Then we can drag a connection again, and for the normal output, it already says expose normal as graph output, so we just click this. Then we can copy this solid color node by pressing and holding Alt and dragging the node We change it to grayscale and make it white. Expose this as roughness. Duplicate this again by holding Alt and dragging the node. And now we need metalness. And as you can see, when you type in metalness, roughness, height, etc., InstaMAT is automatically detecting the output channel, so it will be always shown correctly. So it knows that the metalness is for the metalness. So a full white value is a metallic material and a full black value is a dielectric material. Then we need a height to ambient occlusion node. Let's set the quality to ultra. Expose this as ambient occlusion. And that's it. We have our 5 channels, 6, sorry. As you can see, the output category is set to material on the normal map, but to default at the other maps. And we can change this to material. The category is quite important in InstaMAT, so when we set everything to material, we can use this material later with the link category mode. I'll show that later. So this is the workflow I like to do when setting up a new project. But there's an easier way as well. So when we hit Shift and make this rubber band selection over all of our outputs and hit delete, they are all getting deleted. And we can just spawn a material make node. This node has all the channels already predefined, and we can also set up the channels like base color, for example, directly in this node. We can then right click on the node and go to expose output parameters. And then we can choose all the outputs we want. So let's select all, but disable emissive as we don't need this for now. Then we go to expose and all of our outputs are created automatically. Let's order this a bit. We could then go in and input our created nodes here, for example, our initial base color into the base color and check the changes. Normal into normal, the height into height. This is our roughness, metalness, and AO. So yeah, this is easier, but I prefer the other one without this node. But it's really comfortable, so yeah, why not? And yeah, we basically created our first material. Quite simple, but it's there. So as mentioned, those output categories are quite important, especially when you want to work in link category mode. So this is where you can, for example, blend different materials together and use mask, etc. So when they are all set to material, you can use this with other materials. So let's just show it quickly. Let's rename this to tutorial. And let's create a new element graph. Let's go to the package management. And as you can see, we now created a subgraph. So this unnamed element is our initial element where we created the simple material. The element, unnamed element 1 is our subgraph. So when we now drag and drop our initial graph into the subgraph, you can see it spawns as a node and it has the different channels set up. So again, when you click on this, you can see the outputs and the category. And when we now import a material like, let's just use dirt road. And when we want to blend the dirt road material with this material, we can use a material blend node. And this node, as you can see, it has all the channels but doubled. So we can connect our first material to all the channels with the 1 suffix. And we could go in and connect everything separately. So base color to base color, normal to normal, and so on. But we can use link category mode here. So when we click on this button, you can see the materials only have 1 output, and the material blend node has 2 inputs for materials. So we can connect this material to material 1 and this material to material 2. And when we disable link category mode, you can see that every channel is connected accordingly to the input. So base color to base color, normal to normal, etc. But it's way easier to work in the link category mode for materials. When we right click the material blend node and click on preview as 3D material, we can preview this. We could use a different mask, like a Berlin noise again, for example. We have different settings here, like the normal blend mode, the height blend mode. Can adjust the height opacity, but that's something for another tutorial. I just wanted to show you the link category mode. So remember, it's really important to set the output categories accordingly. So let's go back to the tutorial again. Let's take a look at the viewport and the different settings here. So let's make that quick, as I covered most of the things in the hands-on tutorial. Some things changed with the new update, as some buttons look a bit different and some shortcuts changed. So for example, to choose a different mesh, it is not V anymore, but Control and T. To choose a different environment map, before it was just I, now it's Control and B. Same for the UV scale. Before it was U, I think, now it's T. And yeah, I think those are all the changes. So let's go back to our graph. 1 second. What's really great, I want to show this again, as it's a really great feature. So if you press C, you can toggle the different channels. Like you can see the base color, the roughness map, the metalness, the normal map, the height map, and the AO. And if you have more channels set up, like emissive, you will also see those other channels. So by clicking M, we can cancel the preview and get back to our material. Okay, let's take a look at comments. So you can make comments for different nodes, like for example, if you want to comment out those, the Berlin noise and the auto levels, you can hold Shift and select both of those nodes. Then right click on one of the nodes and choose comment. And like this, comments are not movable. You can move the nodes, but not the comment. By clicking and holding Control, you can select the comment and move it. You can also scale it. In the graph object editor, we have some settings for the comment as well. So we can choose the color preset for default, info, warning, alert, and we can also set up a custom color. For example, this, and also a front color. The front color is for the name of the comment, basically. So let's name it comment. And as you can see, it's in red. You can change that. You can also choose if you want to show the title or not, as well as the description. Let's write a description. And that's also in the front color. We can define shortcut hotkeys. So for example, we can start with 0 and let's make another comment quickly. So this is now 1, this is 0. And this is really great for keeping an overview when you have a big graph, so you always know this 0 might be the base of the material, 1 could be some effect somewhere or something like that. We can also go to the menu on top and click this lock. So when we disable it, we can move the comments without the need to hold control. But I like to keep it locked, as when we are working with a big graph, you can accidentally move it. So I like to keep that closed. Let's take a quick look how we can work with subgraphs and leverage them in our main graph. So to create a subgraph, we can just click this plus and choose the element graph for this. You can also choose the other types like npath, atom, function, but let's go with an element graph now. Let's create a project without a template. So this is now our subgraph. Let's assume we are making a soil material with some leaves. So let's quickly create a basic leaf. Let's use the circle. Let's set it to grayscale. Let's use the transform widget. To scale equally on all axes, we can hold Alt and then move that point. Let's warp it a bit with a Perlin noise. Let's use an anisotropic noise. And an edge detect on this one. Let's invert it. Let's blur this. Then a directional warp on this one and use that blur as intensity. Let's set it to 90 degrees and to one direction. Actually, let's use a non-uniform blur first. Invert this. So maybe let's use a box. Let's blend it with our main shape and use multiply. Let's also use the gradient symmetric and blend it over that. And use multiply as well. Let's define that as our output. And for subgraphs, it's recommended to set them to private. So to do that, you go to click on the graph and go to metadata, then on more, and set the private toggle. So by doing this, when you want to use your material in your user library, you won't see this subgraph here, because if it's not set to private, it will be visible in the user library as well. So for this, we don't want this. So let's save that. Then let's go back to our main graph. Let's go to our package management. And we didn't name that accordingly. Let's name that leaf. Save again. Back to our tutorial, and then just drag and drop that leaf graph into this graph. Let's use a tile scatter on this. Up a bit. Let's make it a bit more random. First we go to color and set the blend mode to maximum. Luminance variance to something about 50. The size can stay at 1, the scale. We bump up the variance. And let's go to position and randomize it a bit more. Let's disable that auto levels for now by pressing H. So this node is now disabled. Let's use the levels on the Berlin noise and reduce the black values a bit and the white values, so we end up with something like that. Let's use the blend height node. Let's input the levels Berlin noise into the bottom input and the leaves into the top input. Now let's go to this Berlin noise, press Ctrl and hold it, and reroute this connection to the output of the blend height. And let's go to the blend height and adjust the offset. Let's use a levels node on the tile scatter as well, so you can select the connection, press the right mouse button, and then type in levels, and the levels will be spawned between the tile scatter and the height map, the blend height node, sorry. Set it up like this. Now we scattered some not so nice looking leaves on the Berlin noise, but I think you get the idea. We can also reduce the width and the height, as we don't need that in such a high resolution, and we will save some processing time. And don't forget to use the resample node when you do this. So the processing time decreases when you decrease the resolution. Well, yeah, I think we hit the half an hour mark, and I don't want to make this tutorial any longer. As I said, I think I'm gonna split it into multiple parts. So I think you could learn some nice things, like how to set up your project and how to get started to building a material. And also the subgraph workflow is quite important to keep your graphs nice and tidy and to increase the processing time. I think we're gonna finish for now, and for the next video I'm not sure if you would prefer to see me building a proper material with some nice workflows and so on, or if you want to see more of these basic tutorials to see how things work. I could also show some nodes and their functionality, and maybe some platform nodes, some directional work nodes, or in general work nodes, slow flow nodes, etc., and how they work and what they are used for. But yeah, I'm not quite sure, so tell me what you want to see. I think for the next one, we will just start to build a material, and I'll show some more advanced workflows for this. So you can see how to build a material from scratch, from start to finish, basically. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching and see you next time.